Hey everyone, and welcome. Today, we are diving deep in deconstructing one of the biggest challenges facing our planet, pollution. If you've ever really thought about how the air you're breathing right now, or the water you drink can actually become harmful, you're in the right place. We're going to break it all down.
So let's start with a question. What is this invisible enemy that's all around us, damaging our planet and, even our health every single day? It's in the air, it's in our water, it's in the soil under our feet. You guessed it, of course, it's pollution. But what does that word actually mean?
At its core, pollution is pretty simple. It's anytime unwanted stuff gets into the environment and messes with its natural balance, making it harmful for living things. Think of it like this. You've got a perfectly good glass of fresh water. Now, what happens if you dump a bunch of salt in it? It completely changes it, right? It's not the same anymore. Those harmful, unwanted substances, well, those are what we call pollutants.
Now, these pollutants aren't all created equal. You can basically split them into two big groups. On one hand, you have biodegradable pollutants, things like food scraps or paper. Give it a little time and nature can break this stuff down. But then you have the other group, the non-biodegradable pollutants. This is the really tough stuff, the things that stick around. We're talking about plastics, glass, certain chemicals, things that can haunt our planet for hundreds, even thousands of years.
All right, let's start with the one we probably experience most directly every single day, air pollution. That haze you see hanging above the city? Yeah, let's talk about that.
So where does all this gunk in the air come from? Well, a lot of it comes from us. Every time a car drives down the street or a factory burns coal for power, gases like carbon monoxide and sulfur oxides get pumped into the atmosphere. They pour out of our tailpipes and from giant smokestacks, creating that thick, ugly smog that just hangs in the air.
And the scary part is, these gases don't just stay put. They have huge, planet-wide effects. They act like a heat-trapping blanket around the Earth, which is the driving force behind global warming. And that's not all. When pollutants like sulfur dioxide mix with rain clouds, they create acid rain. It's a weak acid, sure, but it's strong enough to damage entire forests, harm aquatic life, and even eat away at stone buildings. It's actually one of the reasons the beautiful white marble of the Taj Mahal is slowly turning yellow.
And beyond what it does to the planet, what it does to us is pretty alarming. In the short term, you might just feel itchy eyes or get a headache. But long-term exposure, that's where it gets really serious. We're talking chronic bronchitis, heart disease, even lung cancer. It's a powerful reminder that clean air isn't just nice to have, it's something we absolutely need to survive.
Okay, so from the air that surrounds us, let's turn to the water that sustains us. Because when pollution gets into our water, it creates a whole different but just as dangerous set of problems.
Have you ever seen a pond or a lake covered in a thick, gross green slime? Chances are you were looking at something called eutrophication. Here's how it works. It all starts when fertilizers from farms wash off into the water. The algae in the water love these nutrients, and they have a massive party, creating what's called an algal bloom. But when all that algae eventually dies and starts to decompose, the process sucks up all the oxygen in the water. This creates what scientists call dead zones, where fish and other marine life literally suffocate.
And the danger doesn't just stay in the water. There's this process called biomagnification. It's a chain reaction. So a tiny organism absorbs a little bit of a toxin. Then a small fish eats a bunch of those tiny organisms. Then a bigger fish eats a whole bunch of those small fish. By the time that big fish ends up on a dinner plate, that toxin has become super concentrated. It's a chilling thought, how poison from a river miles away can literally end up in our food.
And believe me, this isn't just a textbook theory. It has had absolutely devastating, real-world consequences. Industrial waste is often loaded with heavy metals. When mercury got into the water in Japan, it caused Minamata disease, a horrifying neurological disorder. Pollution from cadmium led to another condition called Itai-Itai disease, an incredibly painful bone disease. These aren't just statistics. They are direct, tragic links between industrial pollution and human suffering.
Air and water pollution get most of the headlines. But there are other kinds of pollution out there. Let's talk about the unseen and unheard threats, the ones that affect the ground beneath our feet and the sounds all around us.
The very soil we depend on to grow our food is under constant attack. Chemical fertilizers and pesticides from farming, toxic waste from industries, even things like used needles from hospitals. All of this can seep into the earth. It poisons the soil, kills off the helpful microorganisms that keep it healthy, and can eventually contaminate the crops we eat.
Okay, now for a type of pollution you can't see or smell, but you have definitely heard. We're talking about noise pollution. It's basically any unwanted or disturbing sound. Think about it. You're trying to focus on your studies, and your neighbor starts blasting loud music. That sound just became noise. And it's more than just annoying. It can actually cause stress, disrupt your sleep, and even lead to high blood pressure.
So, how loud is too loud? Well, we measure sound in something called decibels. A whisper is about 30 decibels. A normal chat like this is around 60. But look at this chart. Once you get up past 100 decibels, say at a loud concert or near a jet engine, you are officially in the danger zone. Prolonged exposure to sounds that loud can cause permanent hearing damage.
And now, we've arrived at what is probably the most terrifying and long-lasting form of pollution there is.
Radioactive pollution comes from things like nuclear power plants, nuclear weapons, and even some types of medical and mining waste. But here's what makes it uniquely dangerous: its timeline. Some of this radioactive material can remain dangerously toxic for thousands upon thousands of years. It's a lethal legacy that we could be leaving behind for countless generations.
The damage from this kind of radiation hits on two fronts. First, there are somatic effects. That means it harms the person who is actually exposed, causing terrible diseases like cancer. But what's maybe even more frightening are the genetic effects. The radiation can actually damage a person's DNA, causing mutations that then get passed down to their children and their children's children. The horrific multi-generational health crises that followed the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki are a tragic, real-world example of this devastating power.
Wow. Okay. After hearing all of that, it's pretty easy to feel a little helpless, right? But the fight isn't hopeless. There are things we can do. So what's the game plan?
It all starts with a simple but incredibly powerful idea you've probably heard before: the 3 R's. First, reduce. Just consume less stuff. The less we buy, the less waste is created in the first place. Second, reuse. Before you throw something away, think, can I use this again for something else? And third, recycle. Make sure materials like paper, plastic, and glass get turned into new products instead of ending up in a landfill. It's a basic framework, but it attacks the problem from every angle.
Look, tackling a problem as huge as global pollution is going to take big action from governments and giant corporations, that's for sure. But don't ever underestimate the power of your own choices. They add up. So I'll leave you with this question to think about. What is one change, even a small one, that you can make starting today to be part of the solution? Thanks so much for joining me.